Hello, everyone, and welcome to this series of webinars on third-party due diligence platforms. We're going to have three separate webinars that will focus on various aspects of getting the best out of your third-party due diligence platform. Now, we're going to be talking particularly about our platform and the experience we have as Dow Jones working with clients. But I really want to be clear that what we're trying to achieve here is a series of events that can help you, whatever platform you're using, whoever you are working with. Maybe you've built your own platform. Maybe you're using one of our fantastic competitors' platform. This is really meant to be at a level that you can get the most out of it, even if you're not using the Dow Jones platform. So we'll refer to our platform, we'll refer to our services, but it isn't saying ours is the only one. It's recognizing actually there are an awful lot of platforms out there, many of which actually have our data in them as well. So we're going to be talking about the process of making the third-party due diligence program your own, what that means to you. We're going to talk in the next session on enhanced due diligence, when you do that, how you do it, what you do with respect to enhanced due diligence reports. And then lastly, we're going to talk about how we can sort of pivot to address the wider ESG paradigm, recognizing, I guess, that where a lot of these platforms and a lot of these third-party due diligence, I can normally say that better, programs have emerged from, is from an anti-corruption perspective. But actually what I see and what I know you're all experiencing is an increased demand to expand the scope of those programs to cover more risks. So today I'm joined by Claire McMillan. Claire, I know you're not in the best of health today, so let's hope we can make it through it. It's 30 minutes. There'll probably be some coughing. Claire and I work really, really closely together all day, every day. So if we slip into too conversational a mode, I hope you'll forgive us. And we'll be flipping between Claire sharing some stuff and me sharing some stuff, hopefully to show you good examples of what we're talking about. But Claire, before we go too far, can you just tell us a little bit about your role within Dow Jones?
I can, thank you, Gavin. So within Dow Jones, I'm the head of implementation for our risk and compliance proposition. And what that really means is for our key product, a centre third party, myself and my team, we help our clients and customers understand the tool in the first place, use the out-of-the-box features and off-the-shelf features to really create their own versions of workflows, and also support those clients who then want to go on to customize that to make it more bespoke to them. So it's really from that first point of kind of have the platform to really embedding that in, we're responsible for that flow.
Fantastic. Thank you, Claire. So before we really dive into it, I wanted just to sort of level the playing field, as it were, and kind of make sure we're all talking and understanding the same thing. So we're talking about third-party due diligence platforms, okay? So you will have a third-party due diligence program, and within the context of that program, you'll probably have some kind of technology to support the workflow. You may not. You may be thinking about investing in some technology to support the workflow. If you have got a platform already, it probably follows a similar flow to this set out on the screen. You're going to onboard a third party, and there's a moment where you capture some data. Maybe you do that through another procurement platform and you connect via API, or maybe you're doing it manually. So you're onboarding, you're doing that first step of putting in a name. You're going to do some kind of risk assessment, and you're going to consider various factors in reaching a view on how risky a third party is. And depending on how risky that third party is, you're going to do some due diligence, take some steps to gather additional information and additional insight that will help you with the decision. When you reach that decision, you approve or you deny, and maybe you mitigate some risks, maybe putting in some clauses in the contract or ensuring the third party receives training and so on, okay? And then lastly, you're all going to be doing this. You're going to be monitoring those third parties on a continuous basis. probably against some compliance data. And what this allows you to do is, in effect, take this risk-based approach where your lowest risk third parties, which is the majority of your third parties, sail through the process. Medium risk, they go through the process, but with some additional checks, and higher risk are subject to a far greater level of due diligence. And in doing that, you're going to be capturing data from lots of different places. Well, not lots, 3, in fact, okay? You're probably going to be capturing data from the business unit, the business unit that's onboarding the third party. You're going to ask them, why do you want to onboard this third party? And they're maybe going to fill in some data points in the platform. You may be then going to send out a questionnaire to the third party, maybe with some of the moderate or higher risk third parties. You'll send them a questionnaire and you'll get the third party to fill out various bits of information. And then you're also going to suck into this platform some other external data sources. Maybe it's company data, maybe it's compliance data like the Dow Jones risk and compliance data. And you might also be ordering external due diligence reports that come into this platform. So I think that most platforms that are out there, and there are a lot now, there really are, when I think back, 10 years, this was, there was a small number of providers on the market. It's now a really vibrant market, and there are a lot of options out there for you. As I say, we're going to talk about Risk Center Third Party, the Dow Jones platform, when we're talking about our experience. But important to recognize there are others out there. And all of them, as I say, have these various features. And I guess my thought is that clients can basically, take these things and just use them out of the box. Is that right, Claire? Are they able to just kind of take it and say, right, let's plug it in and start using it?
So that is correct. And that the platforms are designed so that most clients can just use it without lots and lots of customization. Ours, for example, have a number of areas that can be configured. So what we say, making in-platform changes, client can do that, our users can do that as well. And on the screen now, we've prepared one of the slides of one of the most configurable areas of the tool. So ours, for example, Risk Center Third Party, allows, first of all, our clients off the shelf without any actual any further training to be able to go in and amend which key stages are must have. And that's in recognition of the fact that it's not a one size fits all for all customers. Here you can see customers can choose for their high risk whether they need to complete the external due diligence questionnaire, perhaps whether the enhanced due diligence report might be required, or if a risk assessment in itself is the only thing that's a must-have before approval. And those are made easily configurable or easily editable on the system itself with the edit button at the top right. The workflow isn't the only area, though, for the off-the-shelf type changes that we make available. So in addition there to the stages and the processes, we have Risk Center Third Party built so that our users can decide which notifications do they want to see. Do they want an update every single time a stage is completed, or would they rather just know at the very end that, say, the third party has been approved? It allows you within our list section and within the tool itself to do things like change the scores attributed to the questionnaire and the overall scoring thresholds, and to turn on and off what should trigger a red flag. And over and above that, you'll see down the left-hand side a variety of other areas like approval rules or expiration rules. And those are slightly more complex rule engines that, again, can be amended from that front end of the tool in order to be able to say that, for example, for high risk third parties and also a high risk jurisdiction, that might need to go to a specific area to be reviewed, as opposed to, say, a low risk third party that could just be auto-approved. And those are just our key configurations so that even just without making any other customization changes or using professional services, the tool can be amended to allow some degree of flexibility.
Got it. So essentially, there's an out-of-the-box solution in most of these platforms, which can then be configured to meet the specific culture or process of the organization. And in your experience, is that what most clients do? They just take it out of the box and say, thanks, Claire, this is great. We'll do it all from here. We'll handle it ourselves. No changes required from you?
Absolutely not, no. So the vast majority of our clients, they do what we call customization in some way. So really that involves opening the tool up a little bit more, changing more than what's available just on the front end in order to meet a more bespoke need. And what I can do is I'll bring up an example of one of our risk assessment questionnaires, and just talk through some of the really common customizations that we see.
So just whilst you're doing that, I guess, we use these phrases and we assume that everyone kind of uses them in the same way. So we've talked about configuration, and now we're talking about customization. And configuration is where an organization can do it themselves. They don't need the vendor like Dow Jones to do it for them. They can switch stuff on, switch stuff off, move stuff up, move stuff down. That's all configuration. But actually what you're saying is lots of our clients, and I guess clients of others, customize as well as configure.
Yeah. So our hard rule is that if it's available for the customer within the company admin or the settings section, that would be configuration. It's something that can be done through what we call the front end or through the interface of the tool. If it involves really opening up any of what we call the back end, so the areas that aren't commonly accessible to a customer, that's where it falls into the customization piece. And that's what my team works on in most cases.
Great.
For some super common customizations, though, I thought it would be more useful if we actually go into a questionnaire itself to just provide a bit of a visual. That being said, our most common types of customization are questionnaire changes. So going back to your original flow, where you said obviously there would be internal and external questionnaires to gather information internally from users, externally for third parties, and combine that with data screening results and enhanced due diligence reports. The questionnaire I've brought up now is one of our internal risk assessment questionnaires. The most common changes that we see in almost every project that we work on is centered around the question set that's asked. We start off with a predefined standard template that we've worked in conjunction with legal partners to define, just as a baseline, what covers those key risk areas and regulations. And that's the standard template that clients get out of the box. However, just due to wanting own wording, maybe particularly having specific focus in certain areas, or looking at for very specific risks, normally that content is changed in some way. We'll see questions added into the risk assessment in the external questionnaires. So for example, the wording here, it might be changed or a new question might be added in.
Yeah.
We'll see new versions of drop-down lists created. So what potential answer is available there? Should that be scored? What type of red flag? It's a very common one. And slightly less common, but we are seeing it increase, is a request to embed links. For example, links to codes of conduct, to internal training, to terms and conditions, or even to training videos that we see embedded into the questionnaires to allow the viewer more support in terms of understanding what it is they need to do in order to complete the questionnaire and what kind of information they should be gathering.
Got it.
One thing I would note, though, in terms of trends, and also something that's very common, is we're working on a lot of projects, and have done now for a while, to streamline the questionnaires based on the third-party types. So, for example, looking at very different question sets if you are dealing with a vendor as opposed to an agent, or changing up what follow-up questions might be asked based on the specific answer given. Where someone says, yes, we do carry out training, for example, a follow-up question that might ask for evidence of that or to upload a file in relation to that. And we're seeing a lot of that kind of project to streamline the questionnaires in order to use this framework to target specific third-party types and to be more efficient in terms of the information that's gathered for those.
So if it's a distributor versus a sales agent versus a customs agent versus a generic supplier, they're going to have a different questionnaire to go out to those different third-party types.
Yeah, we see that as either entirely different questionnaires and processes, perhaps with even different screening approaches, depending on the level of list that you want to screen against, or just slight tweaks within the question sets themselves in order to reflect that maybe they understand that as an individual, this person won't have certain types of accounts to share, but may actually have more personal documents that can be asked instead.
And it's probably worth noting that, you know, as you get more and more requests for a particular change to happen, we kind of, what we do at Dow Jones is we feed that into our product roadmap to say, okay, everyone keeps asking to be able to change this. At the moment, it's a customization, but let's make it a configuration so that customers can do it themselves. You know, so I guess you're talking with, you know, our colleagues in the product team to kind of keep feeding back to them. What are the things that customers keep asking for? Is that how it works?
Exactly. So there's actually a real responsibility in my team to do that, in order to listen to the feedback, to take note of conversations where, for whatever reason, we might suggest an alternative approach, and feed that back into the product team, both in terms of the quantity of those requests, and also just sometimes the quality of the changes it taking us down a different path is an interesting topic.
Yeah.
So all of that is fed back and work really closely with the product team to make sure that's maintained.
So when my worry with this sometimes is that people go to, well, people sort of might want to create this perfect process for themselves and can take customization too far. Is that possible? Can people take customization too far? And does that present problems or?
Absolutely. Absolutely it can. So the more that you seek to make a platform individual and bespoke, the more that you take it off of its standard path, as it were. If you think about almost like software delivery as being a line or a river, each time that we customize, in certain ways that we customize, creates an offshoot in that river and takes it further away from standard. Where that happens, and a lot of those customizations that I've shown you beforehand, our system, it's been designed with those types of customizations in mind. So it's been designed in a way that those kind of changes don't threaten any of the performance or the delivery or the core product piece. But as you seek to make the platform more individual, the other impacts that you see depending on the type of change could be that smaller changes in future take longer to deliver because there's more impact assessment that needs to be made. Perhaps there's more back-end developer involvement. So where we really customize and create new code, it means that it needs to be managed by a more back-end team. And very significant changes, if you really think about that river analogy and the branch off, means that when our product team does come up with really great feature enhancements, we need to be very considered in terms of how we can apply that to the more custom accounts. It may be that it's no longer suitable for them, that the use case has changed so much, or that it has to be tweaked in some way in order to be delivered to that version of the platform.
So if you create a too customized a version, in effect, you've created something that's unique to you that then doesn't keep pace with technology developments and other improvements that might be happening to those more, you know, out of the box customers. Yeah. Okay. And I guess the other thing is, you're not cheap. So the more customization you ask for, obviously there's an initial implementation fee, but then are you building that cost into your program in effect because you're going to continue to need that level of professional services?
Absolutely, yes. So in terms of making those very, very highly customized beyond questionnaire content and minor workflow changes, absolutely, that does build into long-term maintenance where you might want to introduce later changes down the line or integrate with other systems and would need a greater level of support. Also, just as a note, the further you take yourself away from the standard where you do have questions or queries, the more senior or skilled that the person needs to be involved in order to support them. So again, just in terms of your support model, it can also lengthen the amount of time to get to that end answer that you want. Not to say you shouldn't customize, but there needs to be that balance.
Yeah. No, and I think it is so for our audience, I think it's a really important question of how far you feel able to go with customization. And it probably depends on the maturity of your organization and the resources you have available internally to actually work on your side of the customization. So your team, Claire, will be undertaking work, but you need an opposite team to be working with you on the client side, I guess.
Exactly. And that's one of the key things that is part of the early conversations that we have. is to understand, do you have a change team in-house? Do you have a project manager? Can you get all your stakeholders together in one room? Because, and again, we deal with lots of different users within a company, but the needs of, say, the sales or procurement team are very rarely the same as the needs of the compliance team.
Got it. Well, talking of different people, we showed that sort of that flow diagram of onboarding, risk assessment, due diligence, approvals, monitoring. How do people use the tool to kind of make sure the right people are involved at the right time in the right way?
So we use a mixture of groups, role entitlements, and workflow to control who uses the tool at what point. But at the very core of that, there tend to be 3 main users on the tool. Sometimes it's broken down further, but you can usually put them under each umbrella of a general user. So say sales or procurement, the person that's triggering off the start of that relationship, that knows as much as possible about the type of contract, the services, the value. An approver, so someone that would be looking at the risks that are found during the latter stages of that flow, someone that can identify what kind of mitigating actions need to be taken and say whether they're happy or not that those have been taken. And that tends to be compliance or legal or ahead of. And then the admin user, who would maintain the kind of screen that we've brought up there in terms of the admin users. What you can see in front of you right now is an example from one of our role setups. And when we talk about this, it's really your role profile or role entitlements, if that makes more sense, in terms of what you as a user can see and click on. And we use that normally within those 3 buckets, or sometimes broken down further, to be able to say that the general user, for example, should be able to view all of the stages, but perhaps only the admin user, as you can see ticked here, is really able to go in and reassign them, to cancel them, to view the history and the audit. And we use these role settings in order to say who should be able to see what, and then we assign users into groups so that specific tasks are allocated to them in line with that access. One of the things that we see most common, or we're seeing more of a trend on, is read-only roles from other areas. So we are seeing a bigger understanding or awareness of how the data captured in Risk Centre third party can also support other processes within organisations. So a lot of the contract value information is obviously is used elsewhere. In some cases, obviously reviews or screening outputs, other people want to come on and be able to view that. So we are seeing now potentially a 4th role start to appear as a read-only or auditor type role. But the other way, and it's a significant part of the setup conversations that we have, is going back to the approval rules that we spoke about. So here on the screen in front of you, you can see that we split it out so a user can view the approvals, they can start approve, they can reassign it to someone else, view the history or cancel. Because obviously you might want a general sales user to know the progress of the approval, but not necessarily be able to influence it. The other thing that we do within our approval rules is set more complex levels. So we have a more complex rule engine that's used, and that's to be able to say that, say, if it's low risk and in Germany, that might auto approve. If it's low risk but in a higher risk jurisdiction, potentially it goes to a different group to review. And say if it's high risk, it goes through 7 levels of review.
Got it.
Again, it's that mixture between the workflow engine, the groups in terms of what's allocated, and really at its core, this role profile to say who should be able to do what. And that's how we make the system secure as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that security, because that's another aspect of the right people seeing and being involved in at the right stage, just in terms of data security and information security. Another point to note, I suppose, as we're showing this is, I think our view at Dow Jones, from what we hear from our clients, is that we want this to be typically a sort of pretty federated model in an organization where the right business units have access, the right compliance teams have access. And that's why we don't charge by user. Our pricing model is based around the volume of third parties that are in the platform. And I think that's an important thing for you to consider when you're looking at various platforms that are out there is, how many people do you want to be using this tool? And does that, bring in, different cost structures and so on? So it's definitely something to consider. Our view is it should be accessible to everyone who needs it, but that access should be controlled. I think that's, through the experience we've had with our clients. So, okay, so we've talked about kind of making it your own. We've talked about sort of that risk-based approach. I guess, I just wanted to sort of finish off with a few lessons that we see, and these are all really, really familiar to you, Claire, with your interactions with clients. The configuration, I think, is really interesting, because often the conversation starts with, we want it to look like our process.
Yes.
But by the time the conversation has ended, you're probably helping the client figure out some improvements they can make to their process. And they go, do you know what we're not going to do? Is that something you see?
Oh, absolutely. And it's conversations that we have daily, even the last one I had, I think, was a couple of hours ago. So in a lot of cases, because Risk Centre Third Party allows for automation of certain things like screening, like the automation of what should trigger a red flag, what should go for an additional review. A lot of the conversations we have at that early stage is more centred around, give us your process now, we'll map it on to Risk Centre Third Party, and there we can help you visualise where you'll save on resource. And also that understanding of the reason that we want that overall comprehensive, consistent flow is so that then internal resources like a legal or a compliance team can be focused on the high risk cases. So a lot of the conversations that we will have will be around, if we tweak your process, or if we change that question in such a way, you would be able to focus more on the high risk, or you would see less of a duplicate in terms of steps you're taking.
Yeah, and that comes on to that second point there around the risk scoring. I'd encourage all of you dialing in today, really think about that risk scoring regularly. Investing time in that area, I think, really delivers a return, because you should be looking to do less work on a lot of your third parties. The vast majority of your third parties are absolutely low risk, and you need to treat them as such and not take lots of steps to delay onboarding them. But equally, some of your parties are not low risk, they're high risk, and you need to make sure that you have taken the right steps. So I think keep working on that. I have a kind of view, it's a really rough view, but if more than 15% of your third parties are coming out as high risk, that's probably too high. If it's kind of, if you're getting nothing come out as high risk, then again, you might want to think about that. And then the last thing on here, I think, is, Claire, you talked about that constant process. Where this works really well, in my experience, is where clients are comfortable iterating through to an improved process, not trying to get everything right on day one. Because actually, in using a platform like Risk Centre Third Party or similar platforms, you're only really going to know how it works well for your organization by using it. And you'll probably have some demos through the sales process. You might have a trial that will last a couple of weeks, maybe. But it's only when you really get using it that you'll start to see how you can make it work for you. So it's a constant process. We know that because, we have hundreds of clients working with us who all day, every day are telling us how we can make their compliance program better. So do keep working on it. Claire, thank you so much. I know, as I said, you weren't at the best of health. You've done amazingly, and I'm really, really grateful. I know all of our clients are really grateful to you and your team's work in helping them make their due diligence program their own. So thank you very much. And I'll see many of you, hopefully, on the next episode, as we call it, of this webinar, where we'll be talking about enhanced due diligence. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you.